My parents cut me from Thanksgiving. No warning, no hesitation, just my mom's voice saying, "Your sister wants her boyfriend to make a good first impression, and having you there would make her look bad." I was standing in my garage, grease on my hands, cold air biting my neck when the line went silent. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just hung up and stared at the floor like it suddenly had answers. I thought that was the end of it. But the next morning, my family showed up at my door furious, and her boyfriend looked at me and said something that changed everything. "I am Willow Carter, 29 years old, a mechanic who spends more time under car hoods than under warm lights or holiday tables. People say I look softer than my job suggests long hair. I keep tied back eyes that give away more than I want and a face that somehow stays feminine, even when there's engine grease on my cheek. But none of that has ever mattered to my family. To them, I've always been the one who fixes things, not the one who belongs. I grew up in a house where appearances meant everything. My mom curated our family the way some people curate online profiles. Perfect smiles, perfect outfits, perfect stories. And standing next to my little sister Ava, the family's golden brand ambassador, I was always the background character. Ava shined. Ava dazzled. Ava walked into a room like she expected applause, and she usually got it. Dad played along. To him, a daughter with soft curls and a PR job was something to brag about. A daughter who changed brake pads and rebuilt old engines useful, he'd say. Not gifted, not talented, just handy. I didn't fight it. I learned early that challenging the Carter family narrative only made things worse. So, I stayed quiet, strong, the one who handled it. When the sink leaked, I fixed it. When Ava dented her car, I drove across town at midnight. When my parents forgot to pay certain bills, I stepped in before penalties hit. I poured so much into them that I barely noticed how empty I'd gotten. My garage in Boulder became the only place that felt like mine. The concrete floors, the scent of oil, the rumble of an engine catching its breath. Those things made sense in a way my family never did. Machines didn't get embarrassed by me. They didn't compare me to Ava. They didn't ask me to make myself smaller. So, when Mom uninvited me from Thanksgiving, it wasn't a surprise. It still hurt, a deep, pulsing hurt I didn't want to admit. But it wasn't new. She used the same soft, polished tone she always used when she was about to say something cruel. "Your sister wants her boyfriend to have the perfect first impression," she'd said. "She thinks having you there might complicate things." I stared at my phone for a long time after I hung up. The shop lights buzzed above me, flickering over the hood of a truck I'd been fixing for Mr. Bennett, outside. The wind swept sharp against the doors, carrying winter with it. It felt strange realizing my own family could cut me out of a holiday that was supposed to be about gratitude. But something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not yet. More like a quiet clicking into place, the way a bolt finally tightens after years of being loose. A clarity. I cleaned my tools. I locked the garage. I went home alone. And for the first time in my life, I wondered what it would look like to build something that didn't include them at all. The next morning, someone pounded on my door hard enough to rattle the frame. I was still half asleep, hair loose around my shoulders when I opened it and found my entire family on my porch. My mom, dad, Ava, and the boyfriend she'd apparently been preparing the world for. Their faces were red from the cold and from anger. Mostly anger. Mom didn't even say hello. "Why did you tell people you weren't invited?" Her voice sliced through the air like it had every right to. "I didn't tell anyone what I said." "You must have," she snapped. "Your grandmother called us asking what happened. Do you know how humiliated we were?" Humiliated? The same word she'd used about me, possibly ruining Ava's perfect first impression. Dad stepped in next, shaking his head like I was some problem he thought he already solved years ago. "You always twist things, Willow. Always making us look like the bad guys." Ava crossed her arms wrapped in a cream-colored coat that looked like it had never known dirt. She eyed me from head to toe as if my loose t-shirt and pajama pants were personally offending her. "It's honestly unbelievable that you're doing this right now," she said. "You know how much pressure I'm under." Pressure? I almost laughed. But then Ava's boyfriend stepped forward, hands tucked in his pockets, quiet, watching. Logan Hayes, tall, clean cut. The kind of guy Ava would practice smiles for in the mirror. He didn't look furious like the others. He looked confused. Mom went on. You should have just accepted that Ava is trying to build a certain image. Her career depends on it. You're up in work boots and smelling like engine oil. Dad cut in. It's not wrong to ask you to stay home for 1 year. Ava added, it's literally not a big deal. I let them talk. Let them pile their logic, their excuses, their entitlement on top of one another like bricks. My silence only made them louder. Finally, Mom asked, do you have anything to say for yourself? Before I could answer, Logan spoke. Hold on, he said slowly, looking at me again. Wait, Willow Carter. The porch went still. Ava blinked hard. What are you doing? She whispered sharply to him, but Logan didn't look her way. He stepped closer. You're the Willow Carter who restored that 72 Charger. One person couldn't stop posting about it on the forums. My breath caught. Not because he recognized me, but because my family didn't. They didn't even know the work I was proudest of. Ava's jaw dropped. What? No. She just fixes cars. Logan shook his head. No. She builds them. Restores them. I followed her work for months. Dad scoffed. You're joking. Mom frowned, thrown off balance. Ava flushed crimson, the kind of red that spreads from the neck up when the ground shifts under you. Logan's gaze was steady, almost impressed. Your craftsmanship is incredible. And just like that, the family hierarchy cracked Ava's perfect image. Wobbling Mom's script, slipping Dad's certainty, collapsing. For the first time, someone in their world was looking at me, not as a tool, not as an embarrassment, but as someone who mattered, and they hated it. For a moment, no one spoke. The cold air clung to us, and even the snow seemed to fall slower. My family stood frozen, blindsided by something they had never prepared for someone, seeing value in me they never acknowledged. Mom recovered first. She stepped in front of Logan with a stiff smile. Well, that's all very nice, but it doesn't change anything. We came because we need to talk about responsibilities. Responsibilities. That word had been chained to my ankles my whole life. Dad cleared his throat. The roof is leaking again. We need you to take a look today. Ava followed instantly. And I need money. Decorations for a holiday event. You know how important it is. Can you transfer it by this weekend? I stared at her. You're asking me for money after uninviting me. She rolled her eyes like I just said something dramatic. Don't be silly. This is separate. I can't have a bad-looking event. It reflects on my work. Mom nodded sharply. Family helps family. Or have you forgotten that I almost laughed? The irony hit so hard it made my throat tighten. They didn't come to apologize. They came to collect. Logan's eyes shifted slowly between them and me. You're serious? He asked quietly. After everything you just said to her, Dad barked. This is none of your concern. But Logan didn't back down. He studied me with a kind of clarity I wasn't used to. Is this normal for them? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Ava threw her hands up. Can we focus, Willow? I really need the money and the roof thing. Dad already told everyone you'd handle it. Don't make us look stupid. That word again, image. Always image. Something inside me shifted. Not a sharp break, but a slow, undeniable settling, like sand finally sinking to the bottom of the glass. No, I said. It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was steady, anchored, final. Mom blinked. What did you say? I'm not fixing the roof. I repeated. I'm not paying for decorations. I'm not covering bills. Not anymore. Silence cracked across the porch. Dad stepped forward. After everything we've done for you, I cut him off. Everything you've done. You mean feeding me as a kid? That was parenting, not a loan. Ava scoffed. You're being ridiculous. You always help. Not anymore. I said again, the words landing heavier this time. Mom's voice rose. We raised you, and I'm grateful. I replied calmly. But you don't get to use that as a lifetime contract. The wind whistled between us, carrying their shot back toward me like cold breath. Logan exhaled slowly, almost relieved someone finally said it. Good for you. He murmured just loud enough for them to hear. Ava's face twisted. Why are you taking her side? He looked at her evenly. Because she isn't wrong. The balance shifted again, this time faster, harsher. Mom's cheeks flushed. Dad's fists clenched. Ava's eyes brimmed with a fury I'd never seen before. You'll regret this, Dad snapped. But I didn't feel fear. I felt something else. Something quiet and powerful rising inside me. Boundaries for the first time. Leave, I said. They didn't move at first. Then Logan stepped back. Not toward them, but toward me. It broke whatever hold they thought they still had. They left in a storm of indignation and slammed car doors, snow swirling in their wake. I watched them drive off, my breath, steady, my heart strangely calm, and I knew a line had been drawn, a line that couldn't be erased. Snow had already piled against the garage doors by the time Christmas Eve arrived. Inside, the heaters hummed. The string lights cast a warm amber glow across the concrete, and laughter filled the space in a way I had never heard in my childhood. Home, Mr. Bennett told stories about mail routes in winter storms. The teens from the shelter teased each other over burned rolls. Little Lily ran between tables with a cookie shaped like a lopsided star. Tasha hugged me so tightly at one point I had to laugh to loosen her arms. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't curated, but it was real. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. I was reaching for more cider when the garage door rattled, so violently it made everyone jump. Before I could move, the doors flew open and winter slammed into us along with three voices I knew too well. Mom, Dad, Ava. Their faces were red from cold and from something else of rage that had been simmering long enough to boil over. Mom pointed at me like I'd committed a crime. You humiliated us. Her voice echoed off the metal rafters. Do you know what your relatives said after you? Abandoned Thanksgiving after you told them lies about us. I felt every pair of eyes inside the garage turn toward them. Dad stepped forward, jabbing a finger at me. You think you're better than us now that you have your little garage and your followers. Ava shoved past them, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Logan left, she said, voice cracking. He walked out on Christmas. He said he needed space from my family and from me. She glared at me like she wanted to tear the air apart. This is your fault. A low murmur ran through the room. The teens stared. Tasha reached for Lily protectively. Mr. Bennett slowly stood, cane in hand. I didn't make him leave, I said quietly. A's voice shot to a shriek. You took him from me. Logan's voice came from behind them. He stepped into view at the doorway, snow dusted across his coat. No, he said firmly. She didn't. Ava spun toward him. Why are you here? He looked at her with a steadiness that made my stomach drop. Because I wanted to be someplace genuine tonight. Your sister built something here, and you? His voice thinned. Never appreciated who she is. Mom gasped like he'd slapped her. Excuse me. Logan ignored her. He looked straight at me. I'm sorry you've lived with this dynamic for so long. Silence pressed against the walls. Dad scoffed. This is ridiculous. We're her family, not you. Logan didn't flinch. Family doesn't treat her like a utility. Ava snapped. You're choosing her. He shook his head. I'm choosing decency. The room held its breath. Mom's voice rose again. Willow, tell him he's wrong. Tell him you didn't pay our bills, fix our house, carry this family. Tell him we didn't rely on you. I stepped behind the workbench, pulled open a drawer, and took out the brown envelope I'd prepared weeks earlier. Long before I admitted why, I held it out. These are the payments, I said. Everything I've covered for you over the years. Dad snatched it with a triumphant sneer until he unfolded the papers and his expression shifted. Insurance, repairs, FEs, emergency fixes, every dollar, every forgotten favor. Mom's face drained of color. Ava's lips trembled. You kept track, Mom whispered. No. I said I kept boundaries. You just never noticed them until now. A heavy silence spread. You're unbelievable, Dad said, voice shaking. We raised you. We fed you. You owe us respect. No. I said calmly. I owe you honesty. And here it is. I'm done. Ava screamed her through the air. You ruined everything. Logan stepped between her and me. Stop blaming her for your behavior. Mom lunged forward, reaching for the papers like she could erase them. No one will believe this. No one will believe you. I gestured around the room. They already do. Every face in the garage watched her, not with hostility, but with truth, with clarity, with disappointment. Dad's voice broke. You'll regret this, Willow. I shook my head. No. I regret letting it go on this long. Ava stared at Logan, desperation cracking in her voice. Please come home. This isn't who we are. Logan looked at her with a sadness that felt final. It's exactly who you've always been. I just didn't see it. Tears streaming down Ava's face. So, you're choosing her garage over me. I'm choosing a place where people treat each other with respect, he said. Mom stepped back, chest heaving. Dad muttered curses under his breath. All three looked smaller than I'd ever seen them. Exposed, deflated. No audience left to impress. I opened the garage door wider and stepped aside. Leave, I said. For the first time in my life, they listened. Snow swallowed their footsteps as they walked back into the night, their silhouettes fading until the storm carried them away. Logan turned to me. You okay? I nodded because something inside me had finally settled. Not anger, not triumph, just peace. I walked back into the warmth of the garage where my chosen family waited quietly, patiently, lovingly. Let's eat, I said, and the room exhaled as one. The storm outside lasted through the night, but inside the garage, something shifted, like the air finally understood. I wasn't carrying the weight of two families anymore. After my parents left, people slowly returned to their plates, their conversations, their laughter. It wasn't forced. It wasn't awkward. It was gentle the way a wound starts to close. Logan stayed for a bit, helping Mr. Bennett to his car and packing leftovers for the teens. When he finally said goodnight, he pressed a hand to my shoulder, not lingering, just honest. You built something good here, he said. Don't let anyone take it from you. In the days that followed, silence from my parents felt less like punishment and more like space. Space to breathe. Space to grow. Space to remember I didn't need their approval to exist. Work at the garage picked up. The teens came back for Saturday lessons. Tasha and Lily stopped by with a thank you card. Even the winter sun seemed a little less harsh through the windows. Christmas has passed. January settled in. And for the first time in my life, I felt the calm of a future that belonged only to me. A year later, I stood outside my garage, watching snow drift across the lot, the lights glowing warm behind me. My life wasn't perfect, but it was finally mine. Steady, chosen, earned. I no longer chased a seat at a table that never wanted me. I built my own, and somehow it filled itself. If you've ever had to walk away to save yourself, you're not alone. Share your story below and hit subscribe for the next story.